Hello, and thank you for inviting me here today. This is my second time in Czech Republic. The last time I was here was 1993, and I guess there have been some changes in Czech Republic since. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the profession landscape architect in Iceland. And I guess many of you remember this nice little volcano in Iceland called Eyjafjallajökull, and he erupted in 2011. So here you see the human scale. I will show you a little bit more about what happened during that eruption. Sometimes we think we are the center of the universe or center of the earth. That sometimes happens. And Iceland, this is just a short story. So you see, it's a very young country, young society, but it's also a young island, if you look at it in a geological time scale. And this, just for you to know, this is an Icelandic guy who found North America. The Norwegian tell it's always maybe he will correct it later today, but it's an Icelandic guy who went to North America and invented it. So, and we are very proud of our parliament, which is from 930 and still working. So this is the city of Reykjavik. So you see, we had over 100 years ago only 8,000 people living there. Now the 2/3 of the nation is living in Reykjavik area, and this is where the profession is mainly occupied. So very strange city maybe for you, living here in Czech Republic, but very colorful. And just a little bit about the Association of Landscape Architects. We are 100 members with students, and you can see it's very unusual. We have, for every 4,000 inhabitants in Iceland, we have one landscape architect. But there is a lot of work to do there, although we are that many. And you can see 80% of the landscape architects in Iceland, they're working in the private sector. And just for you, if you want to see a little bit more about projects in Iceland, you can go to this Xland.is. It's a web page that is owned by the Association of Landscape Architects, where companies are presenting projects they have been working on. And this is, you can see here, this is a waterfall. Actually, it's a man-made waterfall because we changed the road where the river is running. And here you see a wooden platform which has made it possible for tourists to be there without damaging this area. I will show you some examples of that again. So this is the web page, and you can see several projects, and it's in English, not only in Icelandic. So this is the island looking from above when there's a snow. And this is a little bit about the geology and the vegetation. So this is the situation that has been now for a very long time in this place called Landmannalaugar. And there are some problems that we have been dealing with. You can see a lot of cars in this area. So it's very occupied by the tourists. And who doesn't want to sit in a hot tub in the nature? So this is the geology of Iceland. So you say it's separated. You have the North American plate and they have the European plate. And actually, it's tearing Iceland apart. And you see the pink area is the volcano active zones in Iceland. And we have eruption regularly there. What is also very interesting, we have a hot spot underneath Iceland. So the volcano, where they erupt, it's a hot spot underneath Iceland, very similar to Hawaii. But Hawaii is differently on the center of the Pacific plate, but we are where the plates are going apart. And that's unusual for Iceland. So this is what happens when you have an eruption. This is during the eruption in Eyjafjallajökull in 2011. It's a very strange area when you go into that. It's on a normal day. It's a sunny day. The picture you saw in the beginning, it's taken on the same day with a blue sky. So this is how it turns out when you have the volcano erupting. This is then 2014. And this is the interesting thing about the volcano area. That's also where we have all the hot springs and the hot water. And that is, of course, the main problems in Iceland, that those spots are the spots where the tourists want to go. And that's where the soil of the Icelandic soil is very fragile. And it's not so easy to have all the tourists coming to those areas. And now, in the later years, they are coming also in the wintertime, which is a very bad thing for the situation. But we use the hot water also for heating. Here you can see some power plants in Iceland and power stations. This is what we do with the hot water as well. We heat some pathways or streets. It's a very typical Icelandic situation. And here on the lower, on the small one, you can see the main church in Reykjavik, and the whole street is heated up, so there is never snow there. Sometimes people are lucky, they have it just right underneath their house, and this is that kind of situation. But sometimes we have also natural hot springs, but we are seeing some problems with the massive tourism. You're not always alone in this hot tub. I was there in this hot tub a few weeks ago with 10 other people, middle of the night. So they are being occupied by a lot of people. This is a site not far away from Reykjavik, so you see those beautiful colors, not just in the tourist, but also in the landscape. But you can see this wooden path that is leading through this area. And that's, yeah, maybe a very good example how you can do it, but you should follow the wooden platform. It can be very dangerous if you go outside. You can even fall into the hot water. So I'm going to talk about, this is the natural forest of Iceland. When we first came to Iceland, 25% of the island was covered by forest, but we managed to get rid of it. So 2005, there were only 1% covered with forest, and there's only one tree responsible for that, which is the birch tree. But the thing is, to get the second percent, it takes decades to change that. But we are working on that. So this is the main native tree in Iceland that covers the island. And when we can discuss, should we plant native trees or should we bring some other plants into the island? But I'm not going to close that discussion here, just for you to get the idea. Then we have some interesting spot in Iceland, and we thought this was from nature very exciting, but they choose to apply for its cultural values. So this is where the parliament was granted 930 in Iceland. And now it's a very important national park, but it's covered with people on sunny days. Then we have the European Landscape Convention that was signed in 2012, but we still have to implement it and do a lot of new things with the Landscape Convention. The only thing we have changed is there's a planning law in Iceland, and there's a definition about landscape in the planning laws. That's actually what we accomplished in our association to change. But we didn't change many other things in the planning laws. But I think this is an important thing to have, and from that point we can work on promoting landscape and landscape architecture in Iceland. So those are the tasks. I've said it newly in an interview that you will probably see later on, or you have maybe seen that. Landscape architecture, it's not a local profession, it's global profession. Here you see those are the topics that landscape architects all around the world are dealing with at the moment. And some of them are problems that we are dealing with in Iceland, and I will show you two examples of climate change, how we deal with that, and how we deal with tourist sites. And it's very often that we are dealing with human scale, and we have to think about the needs of the people. What do they want? How do we involve them in design or in planning? And I will show you a very small example of that at the end. And another thing, when you're a landscape architect in Iceland, you have to deal with small scales and big scales. And you will see some examples of that. So dealing with climate change. We had, in 1995, we had 2 incidents in small villages in Iceland, and they were covered with snow by avalanche, and we lost, in those 2 incidents, we lost over 30 people. And that is something that is very unusual, that we lose people, that people die in something that happens in the nature or when the volcano is erupting. So what we did, we had to ask this question: what are we going to do with those villages? Are we going to move everybody out, or are we keeping the people there? And how can we keep them there? So we came up with that idea just to change the landscape and try to change the float of the snow. And this is the first project that was planned in Iceland, and unfortunately it was mainly done by engineers. So after this project we saw, okay, we have to change this, we have to do something else. And I would say this avalanche protection, it's an infrastructure, and we somehow managed to change that and use it also for public space and let the people know a little bit more about why we're doing it and let them use it. And the next project I'm showing you is in the eastern part of Iceland. And here you can see on the small picture the towers or the small hills that are slowing down the snow. But you can also see there are paths, there are some ponds, there is something going on in this area. So the people can, in the summertime, of course they shouldn't be there when it's snowing, but in the summertime they can use it. But it's a huge change in the landscape. And of course it's a collaboration between lots of professionals, not only engineers and landscape architects, or sometimes they have architects that are involved in this process. This is seen from above. And we were planning to have a World Congress in Iceland about landscape architecture And this was the theme: landscape, extreme scales, and human perspectives. What happens in villages or towns like those when you have to put this extreme change in landscape into their surroundings. This is in Siglufjörður. This is actually a project that was got a prize in Barcelona for special interest of the project, and it's very nicely done. It's a very nice shape, and you can see at the end of the ridge there's a platform where you can stand and a lot of paths around it. This is just the first phase. This is actually the guy to the left is one of the landscape architects who was involved with this project, and he was the second landscape architect who came to Iceland in 1963, still active. And here you see to the left you see the first phase, but the second phase is already there. And I think you can see, I will show you here from the top of the one here to the right. So it's a huge scale, as you can see. A lot of soil that have been transported. And it's also important, that's what we saw in the first one. They just formed it, and then somehow there was a plant called Alaska lupine that just covered it, and it's a plant that we should not be letting out in this area. It should be more like this and more connected to what's actually growing on the site. And there are over 16 different villages that have been, where the government has been investing in those avalanche protections. So the other issue I'm going to mention here are tourist sites. This is a waterfall in the northeast. It's called Dettifoss, and you can see there is no fence. You can go all the way to this waterfall, and you can see it's very easy to fall in, but you should have to take care of when you're walking there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the problems and how we are dealing with the problems. Here you can see how many tourists are coming to Iceland. 5 times the inhabitants in 1 year, last year. So approximately there are 300,000 people extra in the country at the same time, the whole year. So it's a very different situation for us. And this has just been growing from 2000. And after 2008, it boomed. And you can see after the glacier eruption, the eruption from Eyjafjallajökull, it even grew more. And we have this tourist site, or the Iceland Tourist Board. They have been collecting data on tourist sites which could be interesting tourist sites, or even a tourist site with special interest. So you see the whole country is covered with those tourist sites. And here you can see the situation on the left. This is only 7-8 years ago. And this is what has been done then. So there is a ladder to get to this waterfall. And just 2 weeks ago, they closed this area because there was they could see there was a danger ahead, because it's not easy to be on this side. And of course you can discuss, is this the right material? Is this the right thing you can do? But at least it's a try. And you can see it's the same area, and you can see the grass is getting greener in this area again. So it's helping the surrounding. And then we have the situation here on the left side. This is very typical. There's a fence, don't go there, but they go there anyway. Of course you want to see this, this nice waterfall, but in the wintertime it's not so easy to go there. Or you have this situation. This is very common in tourist sites in Iceland. So we have to somehow try to prevent this situation. Some people think it's fun, just walk in the mud, but I'm not sure it will be look like nice looking in the near future if we don't do anything about it. So I'm showing you some, yeah, then about the tourist site protection fund that was put up in 2011, and we have been spending, as you can see, a lot of money on those tourist sites. So it's a big investment. And in many of those projects, the landscape architects are working closely with authorities, but of course architects and engineers are also part of those groups that are trying to change the situation. So again, this is the situation on the site. And this was just put up last summer, so it was very hard to find normal pictures of this, but you see the guy who was standing before, he was on the other side, right to the waterfall. This is the waterfall, and this is a computer image just showing what they're planning to do. And this has been built now. But as you can see, it looks very big, but it's so small in this big scale. And of course, again, discussions, is this the right material? Using steel and wood? Can we use something else? But I must say this national park, Vatnajökull, they have been getting a lot of professionals to help them. So it's a very positive thing that they're doing that. And this is again this Landmannalaugar, and this is part of this was a design competition that was paid by this tourist site fund, and this is the situation on to the left, and this is those are images about how it could look like. And just take a look at it. There are no cars anymore in this area, so the car zone is outside this area, and so if you get there, you have to park the car or take the bus, and you have to walk to this area in the future. And this is an area that is run by a municipality in this area. So then I'm jumping a little bit into, I'm showing you 3 projects that I've been working on, but I can explain this. This is my quote for my office. My design is about making decisions based on expertise. So it's not just about landscape architecture, it's about other fields that we can use to make our design better. And that is, of course, talking to people. Talking to the people that are using those areas. And I will show you the last example, I will show you that. Those are the projects that I'm working mainly in. And spatial planning, also planning, is 1/3 of my company. But I'm mainly working as a landscape designer. And those are some images from different projects, but also from some interesting hotspots in Iceland. And when I started the company with a colleague of mine, we were called from architects who were designing the Blue Lagoon. And they called us in very late in the project, but it was a very, very interesting project. It was the first year we had our office, and my colleague was working on the site every day when they were finalizing the lagoon. But it's very nicely placed in the landscape, and I would say it's a very good example where architects are solving this in a very, very good manner. So I would say they did a lot of good things in this area. You can see the building is placed on the edge of a ridge. So the ridge is 6 or 10 meters high. So it's sheltered from the north. And you have a power plant next to it, all the way to the left. You have the power plant. You still see the power plant. There was an idea to move it on the other side of this mountain, but I think this position of the Blue Lagoon is exactly right. And here you can see the overview of the Blue Lagoon, the building. And the thing is, we were working a lot on the site, so there are only a few drawings I have from this project. But the levels that we made on the Blue Lagoon were made in our office, of course, in a close connection and working with the architects, because, yeah, like I said, it was a it's a very good project. And yeah, when you start your office, you think you have won the world, but it's not so easy to keep up with those big projects. You have to learn how to deal with the customers, how to present your design. I would say if I would do this project today, I would probably know a little bit more about how to deal with this big client than I did in the beginning. So this is another project that is a competition again. This is a nursing home. And it's placed in as you can see, right underneath a hill. So there is also a protection from water in this area that we have to take care of. But what I did in this project, this is why I talk about expertise. There is a book called Healing Gardens. It's a professor from Berkeley University who wrote that book, but it's based on a lot of research on hospitals, nursing homes, kindergartens. So for everybody here who is trying or wants to work in landscape architecture or in architecture in the future, you should look up for this book. And it's telling us a lot of things, how people react on green areas, what you should do so the people feel at home or having a nice area, and they're having a green area. So, for example, in hospitals, they heal they feel faster if they have green areas around them. So this is a good example, I think, on working with the ideology of healing gardens. And there's also an Alzheimer's department there, which is a very, very difficult to deal with. You have to think about many other things for those people. So I would recommend that book very strongly. And then at the end, one of the things I do very often are kindergarten or playgrounds or schoolyards. And what I did, I got this project in 2010. It's a very small site. The biggest part of the area is on the north side. And this is a two-story building, the kindergarten. And what I did the year before, I was studying at the university, and I did some small research where I talked with people who are running kindergartens. And because I was wondering why all the outdoor area in kindergartens, they all look the same in Iceland. So I talked to different ideologies about how you are running your kindergarten, and I took all that knowledge from that small project and put it all in kindergarten in Iceland. This is the situation when I started, and what I did. I asked the people working in this kindergarten, okay, can you help me? Can you make a list of things that you would see on the lot? What is there, what you need to have? And that is the 2/3 of the list. Then we have, on the right side, we have the list of the oldest kids, what they want to see in their outdoor area. So I took all of those ideas, and those blue and red things are just things I'm letting going through my mind if I can fulfill those ideas. And a lot of those ideas were implemented in the plan. So this is a very good example how you can involve people in your design, and afterwards they feel very much like it's their own. They own the situation, they own the site. And that is very good for keeping the site nice over years, and they take care of the site. So now you can see what happened. I started with a very old-fashioned sketch in this area, and I bring all those ideas from the list, and I try to figure out where to put it on the site. And you see the technical plan. So there was a fireplace that they wanted to have. They wanted to have a bridge. They wanted to have some vegetable garden. And now this image is not coming. So I tried to put as much of those things, but of course you can't put everything in the plan. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not coming. But okay, so yeah, some technical failure here, but what happened? This area is now 7 years later. It's looking quite good. I'm very proud of that, and I regularly meet the people or the woman that is running the kindergarten to see how my project is doing. And when I meet other people from kindergarten and tell them about this project, they have heard about it. So it's well known among the kindergarten teachers. So I think that project went quite well. But I'm sorry for this technical problem here. And there's supposed to be a very nice picture of a yellow sand beach in Iceland called Rauðisandur. So the only thing my slides are now telling you, you have to go there. But take care. Thank you.